Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to another Supatease video, and upon hot request, and I was also just going to make this video anyways, but there were a lot of requests, so I'm going to take credit for that as well, is going to be the random battleground solo queue experience for a melee DPS. This is taking into account a lot of different categories. It's taking on 1 versus 1, so in a random battleground, you encounter situations where you need to go up against one head-to-head with other players. It's taking into account overall scoreboard damage. It's taking into account objective control, so carrying flags, capturing bases, how easy or how well will you be able to do something like that. And then on top of that, escape mechanisms or defense, right? So how easily are you going to survive? And this is going to determine your ranking overall. S tier being you're amazing in 1v1, you do the top damage, you can escape any situation, you're good at objectives. Objective probably holding a little bit less value, although if you are someone who likes to play to win and not fight in the middle of the road, then maybe you are going to value objective a little bit higher. But let's get started. And we've got Arms Warrior. This is the specialization that everybody that plays Arms Warrior goes, you need a healer or it doesn't work. It's just that's how it's been for a while. Right now, with how high damage is, the main problem you're going to have as a solo player as an Arms Warrior, if you're not just kind of tagging around with a healer and just showering them with compliments the entire time so they heal you, is that when you charge into a group of people, you may just fall over, mostly because you don't have any immunity defensive cooldowns. You can die through die by the sword. Quite literally, you'll die by the sword if you jump into a big battle. So you've got to be very careful with where you pick your fights. Your 1v1 potential versus caster DPS is actually a lot higher with Ignore Pain, Spell Reflect, Storm Bolt, Pummel. You have a ton of disruption, and you will be able to take on most casters head-to-head because of this self-sustain. The main problem comes in big team fights, and you may want to avoid those, or again, make sure that you have a healer nearby. You're not fantastic at objectives. In particular, you've got things like Intimidating Shout. So this is a fear. You can fear a target at a base and try and cap it. The main problem is an enemy player will trinket that, and you don't have a crowd control long enough to be able to capture a base, which is why your objective play is going to be a little bit weaker. You can run things like the Heroic Leap Legendary to get a lot of jumps and jump around the map as an Arms Warrior to try and carry the flag. You do make a decent flag carrier as an Arms Warrior, and as far as damage goes, you're going to do a lot of damage on the scoreboard, especially if you're running Kyrian. You drop Spear Bastion, Colossus Smash, and just Blade Storm. Blade Storm is wrecking right now. Where do we want to put Arms Warrior? This is going to be a contested pick no matter where I put it. It's definitely not S tier because I think you do fall over and you are going to be limited by a healer, but it has redeeming factors like high scoreboard damage and good one-on-one potential. I don't think that it's absolutely the bottom. I don't feel like it's the worst. I feel like it's probably about average, middle of the pack. You're good at some things, worse at others, strengths and weaknesses, averaging it out to about the middle. Assassination Rogue. The main problem for Assassination Rogue is that it's not subtlety. You still have some massive burst damage, but you don't have reduced cooldown vanishes. You're not going to be able to get a lot of cheap shots out and retreat away into the shadows, reset, go for big damage. I mean, it's lacking a lot of the edge that subtlety has. It's a little bit overshadowed by subtlety, but it doesn't mean that it's awful. You can still make it work. It's a little bit more singular. You're going to want to pick 1 versus 1. Your overall scoreboard damage is not going to be very high on a rogue, but your ability to take bases is amazing because you have things like blind and sap. You sneak up to a base, sap the target, start capping it, they trinket, you blind them, you get the base. So your one-on-one potential, your objective play, your ability to kill flag carriers is amazing with things like Smoke Bomb. As a solo player, you're going to be feel very powerful, but when it comes to big brawls and heavy team fights, you want to avoid those situations. That's not going to be where you're going to shine as an Assassination Rogue in solo random battleground play. Obviously, in rated team play, you're going to want a rogue in the engagement, probably not an assassination one, but I think because subtlety is overshadowing assassination so heavily and its lack of performance in kind of team fight, I think it holds it back. But much like the Arms Warrior, it's got some heavy strengths and then some heavy weaknesses, which I think are evening it out to about middle tier for random battlegrounds. Enhancement Shaman, this is another specialization where your healing is basically your only redeeming factor. You do a lot of self-sustain, which can allow you to be able to win 1 versus 1s. But if you jump into a fight, you're limited mobility. You're going to feel like you're stuck and you can't move a lot of the time. And if there's a lot of ranged DPS just pounding away at you, you're going to fall over like paper because you don't really have defensive cooldowns. As far as objective play, you don't have great crowd control to try and cap bases. You do have Ghost Wolf to be able to carry flags and run really fast. So you may make a decent flag carrier. Not the best, obviously, but we got to take into account that you could be opting for that on flag carrying maps. You're not going to like big brawls, much like the Assassination Rogue or Arms Warrior, because of your lack of major defensives. You can just pop off with Ascendance and Chain Harvest from the Venthyr and get some big one-shots. Your overall scoreboard damage, not going to be spectacular. You're going to be held back in that regard. For me, I think Enhancement Shaman, it falls a little bit short of average for a random Battleground solo experience. You're going to want to pick little skirmish battles, not big team fight areas, or stay with healers. Usually don't pick your fights when you don't have cooldowns because you're not going to be doing very much. So I think it falls a little bit short for me as a solo random Battleground spec. I'm putting it into the C tier, just below average. Feral Druid, now this is one where you're going to win every one-on-one. You're going to get away from any fight you don't want. You got shape shifting. You're going to be able to carry flags. You got Cyclone. You got a ton of stuns. So you're able to crowd control to cap bases. Your overall scoreboard damage, it's going to be a little bit lower, but to make up for that, if you're going to be running Night Fae with Convoke the Spirits, you've got massive one-tap potential. Berserk's doing insane damage right now. Ferocious Bite is KOing people. I think you're going to trade a little bit of scoreboard damage for this amazing one-on-one dueler strength. It's like you're like a slightly lower, but it's not so much lower that I think that it's deserving of than S tier. I mean, Feral is just insane right now. I would recommend it as a solo player. You have the same healing potential as Enhancement, but all of the escape mechanisms, you're not going to feel like you're stuck and not able to move. And you have some heavy crowd control to be able to control the fight and crowd control people off of bases. There's no way this isn't an S tier random Battleground experience in terms of performance and fun right now. Feral Druid is absolutely amazing. Frost Death Knight, again, the healing is reduced for Frost Death Knights. You're going to have that feeling when you're going into a brawl without healers and there's lots of enemies where you're just going to fall over and die. So you're not going to want to pick those fights. You do bring heavy burst damage like the Enhancement Shaman with things like Chill Streak to be able to drop a ton of damage out. But unless you're tagging with a healer again, and make sure you're complimenting your healers, that way they heal you. But they're also good people, so you should compliment them because they deserve the compliments too. Frost Death Knight's going to be, I think, as a solo random Battleground experience, is going to be a little bit less than average. You can do decent scoreboard damage by Howling Blasting multiple targets and getting diseases up and dot damage and burst damage. You're going to have that big shining moment. You can run in with defensive cooldowns like Icebound and Anti-Magic Shield, just pop them all at the same time and try and run into a group of people and take them down with Chill Streak. It's another spec where if you don't have your cooldowns like that, you probably not want to take a really big fight. As far as one-on-one, you're okay. Not amazing. I wouldn't say that you're as good as Unholy DK, for example, one-on-one, but in those group fights, if you have a healer, you're going to shine with burst damage a lot more. I think it falls a little bit short in the solo random Battleground experience. When you have those cooldowns up, you're going to feel strong. When you don't, you're going to feel like you're stuck. I think Frost DK falls just a little bit short for performance and fun as a solo random Battleground player. Fury Warrior, similar to Arms Warrior, you got all the extra utility returned to you. You don't have the Mortal Strike, though. Your Blade Storm damage isn't as high, but I feel like your one-on-one is a little bit better, and your self-sustain is a little bit better to make up for that as a solo random Battleground experience. Your scoreboard damage is going to be decent. It's not amazing. It's not spectacular. You're not going to be able to really contest objectives. You can make an amazing flag carrier with honor talents to get extra heroic leaps. And if you wanted to go after the PvP legendary for leaping legendaries, you can jump around a lot. I think it probably comes in about right at the middle as a solo experience because you have a little bit of sustain, good overall scoreboard damage. You can go into big brawls as a Fury Warrior a little bit easier, popping in rage regen, getting some big bloodthirst to heal you up through the damage. When those cooldowns fall off, though, you may want to avoid those big battles. One-on-one is okay. I wouldn't say Fury Warrior is like it's a good experience. It's a solid middle ground experience if you're just going to be playing Battlegrounds by yourself. Then take into account I'm also considering equal gear. If you have amazing gear and you're fighting other players around Battlegrounds that don't, all of these specs are insane. They'll all feel insane. So take that into account, because you may watch other content creators who play these specs and their videos, they look insane on these specs. That's more often than not because they have this gear advantage. So you always want to be going for the best gear, and you can make these specs amazing in the random battleground play where the level is just all over the place of your opponent in terms of their power. You can make them all feel really awesome with that. I'm considering like equal power when I'm constructing this. Havoc Demon Hunter. Now, Havoc Demon Hunter has insane mobility. You have insane burst damage right now. You can absolutely KO people similarly to Marksmanship Hunters. As you unlock more conduits, you are going to get some of that durability that you lost in the past. And the main reason I think that Havoc Demon Hunter is a really good random solo ground battleground spec is things like Darkness, which is a team ice block basically. So you can jump into a really big brawl knowing that you can just drop Darkness on the ground and kill the entire enemy team while everybody on your side is immune. That's amazing extra utility to bring just as a solo player in terms of winning a team fight. Your overall scoreboard damage is going to be phenomenal, and your one-on-one is great with Leech, Blur for extra damage reduction, and Rain from Above, where you can just jump up into the sky, avoid all the melee, and start just blasting them down. You things like Glide, to be able to glide down from high areas, thinking like Arathi Basin. Your ability to cap bases with stuns and imprison is a little bit higher. Not the best. It will still be difficult to cap bases. If you run Night Elf Demon Hunter, you've got Shadow Meld to hide and defend a base, which is really nice. But if you're Blood Elf, obviously you're not going to get that benefit. For me, I think Demon Hunter is a little bit above average as a solo experience because your one-on-one is so good, your damage overall on the scoreboard is so good, your team cooldowns are so amazing, you have a plethora of crowd control to lock down entire teams, so you're going to come into more situations with an advantage than the other specs so far. So for me, it's slightly above average on the A tier. Outlaw Rogue, another rogue spec where you're directly being compared to subtlety a lot of the time. I've been seeing a lot of Outlaw Rogue. It looks like a lot of fun right now with the slight rework to try and get Roll the Bones RNG out of the way. The Echoing Reprimand nerf, though, actually hit Outlaw as well as subtlety. So that was a Covenant ability most Outlaw Rogues are running in PvP. So your damage actually went down a bit, which is unfortunate because it wasn't nearly as comparable to subtlety. But you still get all the same advantages of the Rogue class, Sap and Blind to take out bases, heavy burst damage, and that's going to be great with Smoke Bomb for taking out flag carriers. That's like your power play moment. I feel like Outlaw probably falls into about the same place as a solo random battleground experience as Assassination. You're going to be a little bit more bursty, and potentially lower on the scoreboard because Assassination can bleed multiple targets, but you could get some Blade Flurry in team fight, cleave down targets, pad the meter a bit that way. It's probably just middle of the pack at the moment. I don't see it standing out as absolutely amazing. Do we really value the objective play though of Blind and Sap more? Because if I do that, then I need to raise Assassination, but I don't think Assassination is much more than average as solo experience. I think Outlaw is probably middle too. Just middle. You've got really good things about it, but a couple of weaknesses as well. You may also feel stuck with only Grappling Hook as your mobility, but you can reduce your cooldowns quite heavily at the moment. Mind you, again, in team fight, people just break your crowd control, so all that cooldown reduction may ultimately not matter too much. You're going to feel like you're getting stuck kind of a little bit, but the advantages of Blind and Smoke Bomb outweigh that of things like the Enhancement Shaman of the Frost Death Knight. Now, Retribution Paladin, even despite the nerfs, you've got things like Word of Glory providing you a lot of instant cast healing, which is going to sustain you through a lot of fights. You almost don't need a healer. You really don't. You have immunity like Divine Shield, so you can just go right into big team fights, bubble, pop Avenging Wrath, drop a huge hit of damage onto the entire team. Burst targets down on single target. I'm on my Ret Paladin, I'm getting like 13k Templar's Verdicts. That's like almost 50% of someone's health sometimes. To me, Ret is just as good as Feral. You can still be a flag carrier with Blessing of Freedom. You can protect it with Unbound Freedom. You can get reduced cooldown on it with legendaries. Right now, Ret Paladin is in a really good place, and as a solo experience in random battlegrounds, it's insane. There's no doubt in my mind that Ret Paladin right now is an S tier for experience. You're gonna have a good time on it. You're gonna top damage meters. You're gonna take most one-on-ones. You're almost never gonna die if you save your holy power for Word of Glory, and you have these big immunity cooldowns whenever situations start to overwhelm you to be able to escape. Subtlety Rogue, Another phenomenal random battleground spec at the moment, just the best spec in the game, period, probably across all aspects, PvE, PvP, whatever it is. Insane single target damage, insane lockdown, all the immunity cooldowns, all the benefits of blind and sap, the subtlety. I mean, we don't really need to talk about this. You are going to have a good time playing a subtlety rogue if all you're interested in doing is random battlegrounds. Probably if you're interested in doing anything in the game, you're gonna have a good time on subtlety rogue. Survival Hunter, you've got things like camouflage, so you can disengage, you can feign death off damage over time effects, and then go into camouflage to heal yourself back up for escape. Your escapes are good. Your ability to cap a base is strong with things like freezing trap. Your one-on-one is really good. Survival Hunter is actually very good 1v1. Survival Hunter is still in a really good spot. It's very similar, kind of carrying over from Battle for Azeroth. Scoreboard damage, not going to be amazing. You're not really a dot class. You don't cleave really hard, so your scoreboard damage is going to hold you back. But you're so strong in 1v1. Your objective play, your ability to escape is so good as well. I think that it's slightly above average, which is going to be, I think, surprising for a lot of people. But I think it's low key because a lot of people aren't playing survival. But I think maybe with your pet dying, I'm debating this. I already constructed this, but now I'm debating it again in real time. Is Survival Hunter just middle? It's good, or are the advantages of escape and one-on-one outweighing it? I feel like if I put it on A, a lot of people are going to get upset. But if I put it on B, a lot of people are going to get upset. So no matter what I'm going to do here, a lot of people are going to get upset, which is weird because not a lot of people play survival. So why are you all so mad? How are there so many of you? You care a lot. That's why I understand. Survival Hunter for me, without a healer, solo random battleground experience. Your scoreboard damage is low. Your one-on-one is amazing, though. Crowd control is great for capturing bases. You can flag carry with all the freedom effects from Master's Call and Disengage. Feign Deathing Dots is so amazing. You got knockbacks. Let's take it because there are knockbacks, too. You can knock people off edges and cliffs and stuff like that. I think it's a little bit above average at the moment. I think Survival is in a pretty interesting spot. And that might be this is like a weird spec for solo random battlegrounds to really think about. But I think that its toolkit overall, it's a little bit above average. On Holy Death Knight, you're going to do good on scoreboard damage, good dot damage, good healer killing potential on this spec with so much disruption. If you get on an under-skilled healer, you're going to run them over and dropping tons of pets on them, abominations, and just calling in an army. You may feel like you're stuck a little bit, though. After Anti-Magic Shield and after Icebound Fortitude, you're going to feel like you're not able to move too much. Death Strike's not healing as much. It's still okay, especially if you run Transfusion. So every 45 seconds, when you have these cooldowns, you can run into big brawls by yourself. You can win a lot of 1v1s just by using Chains of Ice and staying away and watching them die to pets and hitting them with ranged attacks. So your 1v1 is sick. Really strong 1v1. Your ability to kind of objective play. You're a good base defender because you've got a pet, but you're not a really good base assaulter. I'd say you focus more on defense in random battlegrounds, like defend a base, hold people off, win the 1v1s, call ink, stall, hold the base with Chains of Ice. That's where you're going to really shine and feel strong. Or big team fights, assuming you have healers to back you up and dotting targets and running healers down. You're going to be strong in those areas. You have Death Grip to reposition enemy fighters and kind of pull them into bad positions, like flag carries and stuff like that. I think it's above average for random battlegrounds. You may have to be worried about getting Zerg down without cooldowns, but all the other advantages, if you play into the strengths, I think make it a little bit above average. And then finally, Windwalker Monk. Again, this is a spec where you're going to win most 1v1s. You can just ram your head against a wall with all your defensive cooldowns like Karma and Diffuse, and just like run in, get all your damage, get a touch of death, get out, portal away. Insane escape mechanisms. You can set up these little nests on defense. So if you want to be a flag carrier, you're going to be amazing at that. And then if you want to defend bases, you're going to be amazing. Also just assaulting bases because you can just absolutely KO somebody on a one-on-one. Team fight, overall scoreboard damage is actually still very high at the moment, which is a bit surprising for Windwalker Monk because it doesn't normally do high overall damage, but right now it is doing high overall damage. I think with its self-sustain, it's amazing cooldowns, it's 1v1, its damage being above average overall on the scoreboard, that Windwalker is going to be an above average experience when it comes to random battlegrounds. And we got it. We got our little tier list here for the melee DPS specializations in random battlegrounds for Shadowlands. Let me know what you think in the comments down below on where you would be ranking these specializations. I'd love to know. Again, this channel is meant as a resource for players coming in so that you can make the right choice when it comes to your gameplay, be it fun, competition, performance, whatever. I want all that out there so you can make the right choice for you, so you get the most out of the game. If you like the video, leave it with a like. Follow me on twitch.tv/Supatease, where you can watch me streaming and playing in real time, just to make sure that I'm not talking out of my butt about all this stuff. I am playing quite a lot. Follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/Supatease, Instagram.com/Supacasting as well, if you want to follow the weight loss journey that I've been on over the last couple of years. Lost over 100 pounds. Other than that, consider subscribing to the channel, so you'll be notified when these videos go live. It's absolutely free, and I'm covering topics of all classes, all content, as well here on the channel. It's a big undertaking, but I was gonna say a big guy, but not that big anymore, but I can handle it. Regardless, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.